Hi there, my name is Acharya and I'm a contemporary classical and film composer. If you're watching this video, you might be familiar with some of my music and are interested in my creative process, or maybe you've never heard my music before and the YouTube algorithms brought you here, and maybe you're just an aspiring composer and you're just really interested to learn more about the process. In any case, in today's video, I'm going to walk you through one of my own songs called The Life Equation. And this song is a part of my album that I released last year, coming on a 1 year anniversary now. So this is quite exciting for me to kind of show you my process. And we'll start off with me just showing you the entire track, and then we'll jump right in and look at the different instruments and effects, and we'll talk about the difference between virtual instruments and real recordings. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll get a bit of an insight into my process as a composer. So let's jump right in. So, as you can tell, the song sounds quite full and it sounds dense, full of instruments. But as you can see here, there's actually not a lot of different tracks going on. And that's kind of my ethos when I compose. I like to keep things quite minimal. And really, in this song, we just have piano, synthesizers, strings, and a bass line. So, we might get started with the intro of the song. It starts off with this really beautiful and ethereal synthesizer vibe. So as you can see here, I'm using the Oliver Arnold Stratus library. It's from Spitfire Audio, and it's actually one of my favorite sounds. It's got this really ambient and melancholic sound to it, and you might notice that it's scattered through a lot of my songs. And I've layered it on with this other synthesizer from Zebra. This is also a sound that you might notice from a few different songs of mine. And I've got a third synthesizer sound here as well from Oliver Arnold Stratus. It's just something to fill in the different frequencies, and it kind of works in harmony with the other synthesizer patches. Now you'll notice on all of these synthesizers, I've got some reverb. So I'm using the Valhalla Room Blade Runner preset. It's got this beautiful tail to it. It sounds really ethereal and angelic, and it really ties in all your different instruments together. And for the introduction of this song, it works really well, just setting the atmosphere. So the next thing we'll jump into is the piano. It's really the leading instrument of this song, and at its core, it's just a waltz. It's a very simple waltz, but with all the other instruments that surround it, it really turns this into a big and complex piece. So the first track of the piano we have is running off this Omnisphere patch called Ambient Space Piano. It's also got this beautiful reverb tail to it. And on this, I've also got a EQ just to cut out a little bit of the muddiness. You can see I'm just cutting out a bit of that low end. There's a lot of kind of muddiness, and all the frequencies start to get a bit mixed up. So I wanted to keep the high ends and the frequencies that are just going to sit on the top of the song. And then, of course, we have the main melody of the song. So this here is the melody. And then on the piano, I also have an EQ just to cut out a bit of the muddiness. I've got a very minimal reverb just to make it feel like it's in the same space. And I've also got this through a send channel in addition to the insert reverb. So if you're not aware, the insert reverb will act on the sound entirely, and it'll spit out a 100% wet reverb signal. But for the send, it's going to take the raw signal, and it's going to spit out a reverb 100% wet channel, and it's also going to spit out your original sound. So by using a combination, you get the raw authentic sound of the piano itself blended with the reverberated sound. And for something like a melody, that I really wanted to use that method of doing things, because you didn't want the melody to get lost in all the reverb. So let's skip to the main part of the song. I really wanted this main chorus bit to hit you like a wall of sound and to give you the goosebumps. So to do this, I started off with introducing a sub bass melody. And the sub is really going to shake the speakers or the headphones. It's really going to make you feel rather than hear. So here we have a synthesizer called Vital, and I'm running a patch through this called the Jupiter Bass. But what I've done is I've added an EQ to cut out all of the high frequencies of the raw patch and just keep the low end. The next thing I wanted to add to this wall of sound is a number of different synthesizer sounds to kind of fill in the frequencies. So the first thing we have here is an arpeggio. It's that kind of electronic dancing sound in the background that you hear. So one of the things that I added to this synthesizer element that I have when the wall of sound hits is this thing called the Auto Panner. Now, Cubase has a version of this, and I'm sure all the different workstations do as well. But essentially, what it does is it bounces the track between your left and right channels, and it's just something really interesting to add to your song. It makes it a lot more dynamic, and it can fill out the sound of your music. So I tend to add this a lot to arpeggios. It works really well because it kind of dances between your left and right ears. Um, but really, it can be added to anything, and just adds a lot to your song. And that sound also gets paired with the string section. So we have a number of different cello recordings that kick in at the same time. And we also have a patch here, which is just a bunch of string textures in the background. It kind of is very subtle and it just sits in the background, but just because it sustains through the rest of the song, it feels like something's there building tension. And I think layering elements like this can really help you to add to the song and make it sound a lot more full, like it does in this piece. And so here, as I mentioned, we have a number of cello recordings. A bit later on, we'll talk about the difference between virtual instruments and real recordings by session musicians. But just quickly now, I'll show you what I've done with these recordings. I've added a bit of EQ to cut out a lot of the muddiness again. And I've also sent this through a multi-panner. So this plugin in Cubase, I'm sure there are similar ones in Logic as well. It helps you to position the sound in 3D space. So as opposed to just putting it left or right, you can actually move it back and forwards as well. So it helps to just position the cellos around, especially if you've got 3 or 4 different tracks like I do in this song. And here I'll just show you the difference between the MIDI virtual instrument cello and the real recordings I got back from very talented cellist Polina Festova. So I'm just going to play you the MIDI ones now and see if you can kind of tell the difference between them. So it doesn't sound too bad, but you can tell it's missing a bit of magic that Paulina, the cellist, really brought to this piece. So the cellos I was using for the MIDI recordings were from Spitfire Audio. They're the chamber strings. And really, the way I work is I tend to improvise when I write. I kind of write my melodies down using the MIDI keyboard. And when I have the different melody lines for the cellos or the different instruments, I will export these and give them to the session musician. And because I can't read music myself, they kind of convert all of these MIDI recordings into sheet music so that they can interpret them and play them on the spot. and then I will take these recordings that they give me and then replace my MIDI tracks. So you can see there's not a lot going on here behind the scenes with this track, but despite that, it sounds quite full. And I think that's really a testament to being able to layer in different sounds together and blend them. And, trying to take a minimal approach can sometimes lead to a fuller sound. It's almost like a less is more approach. So, yeah, with the Life Equation, it was really just the piano, the waltz that leads it. And in the background, we have all these synthetic synthesizer elements. And of course, we have these beautiful strings recorded by my cellist. And in the low end, we have this sub bass that kind of makes you feel the sound rather than just hear it. So quite a minimal approach, and hopefully this gives you a bit of insight into how I approached making the Life Equation. And if you're interested in this kind of content, please let me know in the comments, and hopefully there's a lot more like this to come. So thank you.